By the time I found out what my sister had posted, it already had 47 comments. I wasn't even supposed to see it. My coworker Jen, not a close friend, just someone I ate lunch with sometimes, she sent me a screenshot with a single line of text. "Hey, is this about you?" It was. My sister had posted a photo of me from Thanksgiving. I was asleep on the couch, mouth slightly open, still wearing the apron from when I'd spent 4 hours cooking for everyone. She'd written, "My 29-year-old sister who works in finance but can't afford her own place, can't keep a boyfriend, and apparently can't stay awake past 7 p.m. either." The American dream, ladies and gentlemen. Her friends had liked it. Her boyfriend had commented a laughing emoji. My cousin, the one I'd driven 2 hours to pick up from the airport the previous Christmas, wrote, "At least she's consistent, Labul." My mom had liked it too. I read that part 3 times. My mom had liked it. I put my phone face down on my desk and stared at my computer screen for probably 10 minutes without seeing anything on it. Here's what nobody in my family talked about. I'd been carrying them for 2 years. Not in some vague emotional way. In a very literal, spreadsheet-documented way. When my dad lost his job in 2022, my parents almost lost the house. I was 27. I had been working at the same regional accounting firm for 3 years, making decent money, living in a studio apartment 40 minutes away, eating rice and rotisserie chicken twice a week because I was trying to save. I led my parents $11,000 over 8 months. We didn't call it a loan out loud because my mom said that word made it feel transactional. So we just called it helping out, and I told myself I'd figure out a repayment plan later. Later never came. Then my sister, she's 25, 2 years younger, she went through a bad breakup and couldn't afford her apartment anymore. She moved back home. My parents couldn't cover the extra utilities and groceries with her there, so I started sending an extra $300 a month, just quietly. It came out of my savings account automatically. I set it up like a bill because that's what it had become. I also did their taxes. Both years. My dad's freelance paperwork was a mess. 3 different 1099s, some expenses he'd tracked in a notes app, some he hadn't tracked at all. I spent entire weekends reconstructing his record so he wouldn't get flagged by the IRS. He told me once that I was so good with numbers, the way you'd compliment someone for being good at parallel parking. Impressed, but not really grateful. I hoped my mom set up her Etsy shop. She makes candles, good ones actually, and she'd been trying to sell them for years with no traction. I built her the listings, figured out her pricing and shipping, wrote all the product descriptions, connected her PayPal, and walked her through the first 10 orders over the phone. The shop eventually made a couple $1,000s over the holidays. She told her friends she'd finally figured out the internet. She didn't mention me. I wasn't looking for credit. I want to be clear about that. I wasn't doing any of it so someone would throw me a parade. I did it because they were my family and they needed help, and I was in a position to help. That's what you do. That's what I believed. I just didn't realize that helping invisibly was the same as not existing. My sister and I had never been especially close, but we weren't hostile either. She was the louder one, funnier, in a crowd. She had more friends, went out more, filled up a room in a way I never quite managed. I was fine with that. I had my own thing. I liked my quiet apartment, my Saturday morning runs, my small circle of people I actually trusted. What I didn't realize until that Facebook post was that she had apparently been building a whole narrative about me in her head. The disappointing older sister. The one who peaked in high school and never figured out real life. The one with the impressive-sounding job that somehow hadn't translated into an impressive life. The photo she chose was cruel in its specificity. I looked exhausted in it because I was exhausted. I'd cooked for 6 people, cleaned up after everyone, washed dishes while they watched football, and then sat down on the couch for the first time in 5 hours and closed my eyes for 20 minutes. She'd taken the photo without saying anything, posted it without telling me, and framed it as evidence of something wrong with me. The caption had 47 comments by the time Jen sent me the screenshot. It had 93 by the end of the day. Some of them were her friends being goofy, dumb little jokes that didn't mean much. But some of them were meaner. My cousin's comment got 12 likes. Someone I'd never met wrote, "The finance degree really doing a lot for her, huh?" An ex, someone I dated briefly 2 years ago and hadn't spoken to since, liked the post. I don't know how he even saw it. I don't know how he even saw it. I don't know why he felt the need to engage. My aunt, my mom's younger sister, commented, "This is so her. Remember when she cried at her own graduation because she didn't get the award? Drama queen then. Nap queen now." That one got 17 likes. I had not, for the record, cried at my graduation because I didn't get an award. I had cried because my grandfather, who had promised for 4 years that he would be there, had canceled 2 days before because he didn't want to make the drive. That was what I was crying about. But nobody in my family had ever asked, and apparently the story had calcified into something else entirely. I screenshotted everything. The post, every comment, the like count, the timestamp. I didn't know yet why I was doing it. I just knew I wanted documentation, a record of what was real, separate from whatever version of events they were constructing. Then I closed the app and didn't respond to a single thing. My mom texted me that night, not about the post, about whether I was coming home for Christmas, which was 3 weeks away. I said I'd let her know. She sent a thumbs up emoji. That was it. "No, I saw what your sister posted. No, I should not have liked that." Nothing. Like it hadn't happened. Like she'd clicked that little thumbs up on a photo of her sleeping daughter being mocked by 40 strangers and then moved on with her evening. I lay on my couch that night with the lights off, staring at the ceiling, trying to decide if I was going to cry. I didn't, which surprised me a little. I wasn't numb. I felt something, a tight, cold thing sitting in the center of my chest. But it wasn't the kind of grief that comes out as tears. It was more like clarity, the sharp, slightly nauseating kind. I'd been operating under an assumption that turned out to be wrong. I'd assumed that because I was useful, I was valued. I'd confused those two things for years without realizing they were not the same. I didn't make any dramatic decisions that night. I didn't write out a list or plan anything. I just made one small, quiet mental note to myself, and then I went to bed. The note was, "Stop." I started the following Monday. First, I canceled the automatic transfer. $300 a month gone. I'd set it up so quietly that I wasn't sure anyone even knew where it had been coming from. My mom sometimes mentioned that things were tight, without connecting it to the fact that they'd been a little less tight for the past 18 months because of me. I canceled it in about 45 seconds. I watched the confirmation email come in and felt almost nothing. Then I opened my email and drafted a message to my dad. He'd been asking me for weeks to look over some new freelance contracts he'd signed. He'd started doing some consulting work, and the agreements were more complex than his usual stuff. I'd been meaning to get to it. I'd kept it in my mental to-do list alongside call dentists and fix the leaky faucet. I moved that email to a folder called Not Now and closed the tab. I looked at my calendar. I had 2 things blocked off: Christmas at my parents' house and my mom's birthday dinner in January. I didn't cancel them yet, I just looked at them. My mom texted me 3 days later asking if I could take a quick look at her Etsy shop. She was having trouble with a discount code for the holidays. She'd been doing well with the shop, better than I expected, and the customer messages were backing up because she didn't understand how to use the bulk reply feature. I read the text. I put my phone down. I came back to it 2 hours later and wrote, "Hey, I've got a lot going on right now. I think the Etsy Help Center has good tutorials for that. Hope you figure it out." I sent it before I could second guess myself. She didn't respond. The week after, my dad emailed asking if I'd had time to look at the contracts yet. I said I'd been slammed at work and would try to get to it after the new year. He said no worries, and I knew from experience that he would ask again in 10 days. I started keeping a log, not because I was planning to do anything with it, just because writing things down helped me stay honest with myself. Date. Thing I normally would have done. Did I do it? How did it feel? It felt strange, mostly. Like walking out of a building I'd been inside so long I'd forgotten what the outside air smelled like. My sister texted me 8 days after the post like nothing had happened. She sent a meme, some video of a dog doing something funny. The kind of text that assumes the relationship is fine, that there's no outstanding anything. That we're just two sisters swapping dumb internet content on a Wednesday afternoon. I didn't respond. She texted again the next day. You okay? You've been quiet. I thought about what to say for a long time. What I landed on was nothing. I left it on read. The 10th day, she called. I let it go to voicemail. She didn't leave one. I wasn't playing a game. I want to be clear about that. I wasn't counting down to some planned reveal. I was just not ready. Not ready to have a conversation in which she would minimize what she'd done, or explain that it was just a joke, or ask me why I was being so sensitive. I'd had that conversation in my head enough times to know I didn't have the energy for the real version yet. 14 days after the post, my parents' house had a burst pipe. It happened on a Tuesday morning, while my dad was at a client meeting and my mom was home alone. The pipe under the kitchen sink let go. Old house, cold snap the night before, and water started coming up through the floor. My mom called a plumber who told her the repair was going to be around $1,800, and that didn't include the water damage remediation, which was a separate contractor. She called me first. I saw the call come in. I watched my phone ring, and then I let it go to voicemail. She left a message. Sweetheart, we have kind of an emergency. I need you to call me back as soon as you get this. There was a pipe. I texted her, I saw your voicemail. So sorry, that sounds really stressful. I don't have cash available right now. You might want to check if your homeowner's insurance covers water damage. Most standard policies do. That was true, by the way. Their insurance did cover it. I knew because I had helped them pick the policy 2 years ago, and I remembered specifically choosing the one that included water damage because the cheaper option didn't. She called again. I let it ring. My dad called. I texted him the same thing I'd texted her, added the name of the insurance company, and told him to look for the policy documents in the blue folder in the filing cabinet in the office, the one I had organized for them during a visit 18 months ago. He texted back 20 minutes later, found it. Thank you. That was it? No follow-up? No, are you okay? You seem different lately. Just found it. Thank you. And then silence. I sat with that for a moment. Then I went back to work. My sister figured it out before my parents did. She called me on day 16, 2 weeks and 2 days after the post. And this time when I didn't answer, she texted immediately after, I know you saw the post. I know you're mad. Can we just talk? I typed back, I'm not mad. I just needed some space. She said, what does that mean? I said, it means I needed a break. I'll reach out when I'm ready. She said, you're being really dramatic about a Facebook post. I didn't respond to that one. The next morning, she called again. This time I answered, because I was tired of the back and forth and I knew this conversation was going to happen eventually regardless. She started by telling me she hadn't meant it the way it came out. That it was just a silly post. That she hadn't thought about it that much. That her friends didn't know me, so it wasn't really about me, not really. That I was taking it too personally. I listened to all of that. And then I said, very calmly, you posted a photo of me asleep, called me a failure in front of your 200 friends, and mom liked it. I'm not taking it personally. That is personal. There's a difference. She went quiet. I kept going, not loudly. I didn't raise my voice once. I told her about the $11,000. I told her about the $300 a month. I told her about the $300 a month. I told her about the taxes, 2 years worth. About the Etsy shop. About the airport pickup. About the 45-minute phone call I'd spent helping her navigate her health insurance enrollment last fall when she'd just started a new job and was panicking about the deadline. I didn't say any of it to make her feel guilty. I said it because she described me as a failure on the internet, and I wanted her to have accurate information about who she had actually been talking about. She said, I didn't know about all of that. I said, I know you didn't. That's sort of the point. There was a long pause. Then she said, so what, you're just not going to help anyone anymore? And I said, I'm going to help people who see me. I didn't say anything after that. She didn't either for a while. Then she said she needed to think, and I said, okay, and we hung up. My mom called that evening. She'd clearly talked to my sister. The call had a different quality to it than her usual ones, more careful, more deliberate, like she was choosing her words with some effort. She said she was sorry about the post, that she shouldn't have liked it, that she hadn't thought about how it would look, that she'd just been scrolling. I said you scrolled past a photo of your daughter being made fun of by strangers, and you clicked the thumbs up button. You did think about it. You just didn't think it mattered. She started crying. I didn't soften my voice. That surprised me. I had expected some reflex in me to want to make her feel better. To say it's okay. I know you didn't mean it. But the reflex wasn't there. I think I'd been running on that reflex for so long that when I stopped, there was just nothing underneath it. Quiet. A door that had been open for years finally closed. I told her I needed time. I told her I wasn't coming home for Christmas. I told her that I loved her, and I also needed her to understand that love was not the same as being available for everything, every time without acknowledgement. She said she understood. I didn't entirely believe her. But I said goodnight and hung up. I made myself a bowl of soup. I watched 2 episodes of a show I'd been meaning to get to for months. I went to bed at 10. I slept better than I had in a long time. I spent Christmas at my apartment. I told people at work I was going to my family's. I told my family I wasn't feeling well. Neither was really the full truth, but I wasn't in the mood to explain myself to anyone. I ordered Thai food. I watched 3 movies. I went for a long run in the cold on Christmas morning and listened to a podcast about deep-sea creatures, which sounds bizarre but was exactly what I needed, something completely unrelated to any of this. Something that made the world feel large and strange and full of things that had nothing to do with me. My phone buzzed throughout the day. My sister. My mom. My aunt, the one who'd made the graduation comment, who I now had less than no interest in talking to. An uncle who probably didn't even know what he was calling about. I let them all go to voicemail. In the evening, my dad texted, "Miss you. Hope you're feeling better." That one I answered. I said, "Thanks, Dad. Happy holidays." I meant it in a complicated way. January was quieter than I expected. I had braced myself for a prolonged campaign. More calls, more texts, escalating pressure, maybe someone showing up at my apartment. That was what I'd imagined. But the actual thing was subtler than that. My sister texted a few times, nothing heavy. My mom sent photos of the Christmas tree, the Christmas dinner, a new candle scent she was developing for the Etsy shop. Normal mom content. Like we were fine. Like we'd had a slightly awkward period that had now resolved. I responded to some of it. Short, friendly, nothing that reopened anything. I was not trying to freeze them out forever. I was trying to find a new equilibrium. One where I participated in my family on different terms than I had before. The terms being, I would show up when I wanted to. I would help when I had capacity and when I wanted to. I would not do things out of obligation, and then feel invisible, and then stuff that down and keep going. I would not be the thing holding everything up from underneath, unseen, taken for granted. In February, my mom's Etsy shop had a rough month. A bad review from a customer who'd received a candle with a cracked lid, which turned into a small pile-on when a couple of the reviewer's friends added their own 1-star ratings. My mom texted me in a panic. She didn't understand how to respond to the reviews. She was worried the shop was going to tank. I called her back that day. I helped her draft a professional response to the negative reviews. Calm, acknowledging the issue, offering a refund and replacement. I walked her through how to reach out directly to each reviewer. I looked at her shop and noticed she'd never set up a shipping insurance option, which would have protected her from the cracked lid situation in the first place. I helped her fix that too. She said, "Thank you, sweetheart. I don't know what I would do without you." And then she said, "I mean that. Not just for today, I mean it about everything." I believed her a little more this time. I said, "I know, Mom, I love you, and I do." That part was never the question. A few months after all of this, I was at lunch with Jen, the coworker who'd sent me the screenshot, and she asked how things were going with my family. I gave her the summary. She listened, nodded, said, "Sounds like you're in a better place." I thought about that. I was, and I wasn't. I was still helping my family just differently. My dad had asked me again about his contracts in January, and I'd actually looked at them, because he'd asked in the right way. He said he appreciated my help and he understood if I was busy. That small thing, that acknowledgement that my time is a real thing and not an assumed resource, made me want to help him. So I did. I caught 2 clauses that would have cost him if a project went sideways. He called me when he found out and said, "You might have just saved me $3,000. I said, "You're welcome, just that. Not it was nothing or, oh, I'm sure you would have caught it. Just you're welcome." It took me longer than it should have to learn to say that. My sister and I have a different relationship now. Not distant, exactly, but honest in a way we weren't before. She doesn't take my availability for granted anymore. I don't perform contentment. I'm not feeling. It's more work, in some ways, to be in a real relationship with someone rather than a convenient one. But it's also more solid. She has never, as far as I can tell, reposted anything about me on social media. I still have the screenshots. I don't look at them often, but I keep them in a folder on my phone. Not out of bitterness, but because they remind me of a specific thing I learned. That invisibility is something you can consent to, and you can also withdraw that consent. It doesn't have to be dramatic. It doesn't have to be a speech or a confrontation or a list of grievances read aloud at a dinner table. Sometimes it's just an automatic transfer you cancel on a Monday morning. Sometimes it's a voicemail you let play out. Sometimes it's sleeping through Christmas in your own apartment, eating pad thai, and listening to a podcast about the deep ocean, alone and at peace with that. Self-respect doesn't announce itself. It just holds. And eventually, the people who care about you figure out what was always there, holding things up, underneath everything. They either figure it out or they don't. And you learn either way, that you were never invisible. You just let yourself be treated like you were. That's the part I'm still working on, if I'm being honest. Learning the difference between giving because you want to and giving because you're afraid of what happens if you stop. I'm getting better at it. Slowly. The way most things worth getting better at actually happen. Not in a moment and not all at once, and not because someone finally understood, but because you decided to. I used to think that being dependable was the same as being loved. That if I just kept showing up, kept doing the taxes, kept sending the money, kept answering the calls, eventually the people I was doing it for would look up and see me. Really see me. Not the function I served, but the actual person performing it. What I learned, the hard way, is that people rarely look up when everything is running smoothly. There's no reason to. The lights are on, the bills are paid, the shop is working, the contracts are clean. Why would anyone stop to ask how that happened? You don't think about your foundation until something cracks. My sister posting that photo was a crack. But not the kind she intended. She thought she was exposing something embarrassing about me. What she actually did was expose something true about the whole arrangement we'd all been living inside. That I had been treated as infrastructure. Useful, load-bearing, and invisible by design. The strange thing about cause and effect is that it doesn't care about your intentions. My sister didn't post that photo thinking she was setting off a chain of consequences. She was just being careless with someone she decided wasn't worth being careful with. That carelessness had a cost she hadn't calculated, because she'd never had to calculate it before. I had always been there to absorb it. When I stopped absorbing, quietly, without a speech, without a confrontation, the math changed. Not because I was punishing anyone, but because I had finally started being honest about what I actually had to give, and what I no longer wanted to give away for free. That's not revenge. That's just arithmetic. What I keep coming back to, months later, is the question of what it means to have integrity toward yourself. We talk about integrity like it only points outward, keeping your word to others, being honest with others, showing up for others, but there's another direction it can point. Inward. Keeping your word to yourself about what you will and won't accept. Being honest with yourself about when something has stopped being generosity and started being self-erasure. Showing up for yourself the way you would never hesitate to show up for someone you loved. I had good values. I genuinely did. I believed in family, in sacrifice, in showing up without keeping score. Those are not bad things to believe in. But I had applied them so one-sidedly that they had slowly hollowed me out. Virtue without self-respect isn't virtue. It's just a habit of shrinking. The resilience part, the part I'm still building. isn't about becoming harder or colder or more guarded. It's about becoming clearer. Clear about what I'm giving and why. Clear about what I need in return, even if what I need is just acknowledgement. Just someone saying, I see what you do, and it matters. That's not a big ask. It shouldn't have taken a Facebook post with 93 comments to make me realize I'd been going years without it. My aunt's comment about my graduation is still there somewhere, preserved in a screenshot on my phone. I don't look at it, but I think about what it represented. A story my family had been telling about me in private for years. A version of me they'd agreed on without my input. Weak, dramatic, dependent, the nap queen. The version of me I'm building now doesn't need their agreement. That's what I'm working on. Not becoming someone different, but becoming more fully the person I already was. The one who showed up, figured things out, held things together. Only this time, she knows her own name.